It's part of the rugby DNA here, and you see teams drive from all over Fiji to come here, and for the players, I know they come to love to hate it.
These dunes just outside Singatoka on Viti Levu are a sacred site for Fijian rugby. It's a rite of passage for the country's elite players to train here.
Whenever we start a season, there's always, a mountain in front of you, and for us it's the sand dune.
It's tough work, but for those training here, the chance to play rugby professionally is life-changing.
My dream is to one day I will support my mom and dad. I give my best to the talent that God provided to me till I achieve my goals.
It is often said Fijians are born with a rugby ball in their hands. That's how important the sport is to this country. Our kids start playing the moment they can walk. And many will give their all to making it professionally. But are young Fijian lives being put at risk in the race to glory?
The coaching staff of Fiji's under-20 rugby side has been stood down following the death of squad member Pasikali Naevo.
In early 2023, the death of 18-year-old Pasikali Naevo after a high-performance training camp rocked the nation.
Imagine seeing your child leave home for a regular activity and then realizing later that he will never return home.
Pasikali is not the only young player to lose their life on a rugby field in recent years. The Fiji Rugby Union promised answers.
We'd rather get to the bottom of it and find out the truth. We don't want to lose anybody else.
1 year on, and Pasikali's family still knows little about what led up to his death.
He was a clever boy, and we wanted to see him as well pursue in his education, but he had just made his mind up.
Pasi was born into a sporting family. His mother swam for Fiji in the Commonwealth Games, and his father, Api Naevo, was a flying Fijian.
This is when he was small.
He's an idol to me. He's the main reason I'm playing this sport. So I'm going to try and be better than him.
When Pasikali was selected to join FRU's under-20s high-performance unit, he was thrilled.
It was a big break for him. He was someone that just wanted the dream. He wanted to be it, and we supported it.
But on February 23rd last year, that dream came to a sudden end. Pasikali collapsed during a non-contact training session.
That day he was fine. He woke up, made mom's breakfast. So for me, getting the news, it was just like, okay, there's something definitely wrong.
After being moved to Lautoka's main hospital, Pasi's condition deteriorated and he passed away 3 days later. Doctors there initially said Pasi had leptospirosis, a dangerous but usually not fatal bacterial infection. According to his mother, that diagnosis was never confirmed through testing in the confusing aftermath at the hospital. The family also requested his body be returned to them immediately, foregoing an autopsy.
Mom didn't want to get the autopsy done, so we respected that as a grandmother, and us as well. We just saw that Pasi was a perfect child that God had given us.
The previous FRU administration announced an investigation into what led up to his collapse, but answers never came.
I had to continue on, knocking at their door to ask them for the report, just so that we can all see what really happened on the day.
Some of Pasikali's teammates privately suggested they were worried about him before he collapsed. The ABC obtained these testimonies from players present that day.
I noticed he was running all over the place. He seemed a bit dizzy.
Pasikali tried to leave the training session, according to a teammate.
As the coaches were calling him back, he was all wobbly and stuff. It sounded like they were trying to call him back and trying to push him in the training session.
I think a lot of them were scared to talk, but there's a few of them that are close to us. So when we heard it, we were very, we were shocked.
An excerpt from an incident report filed to the FRU said that Pasi couldn't run anymore and walked out of the session with his bag, and that he was sweating profusely.
What was quite alarming was that in the lead up to when he finally collapsed, I think there should have been a bit more attention paid to him. I believe that particular case was mishandled by Fiji Rugby Union, and it's something that we really need to address as a focal point when we're looking at the protection and welfare of players.
The case has thrust player welfare into the public consciousness like it hasn't been before, but many others have died in similar circumstances.
Another highly publicized case took place in August 2022. 19-year-old Monica Koroin-Rekelevu, a Nandronga Fijian player, died 3 weeks after a spinal injury sustained in the Marama Championships. She continued to play and train despite the injury. Part of the problem also stems from players' unwillingness to admit they may be unwell.
You see the passion, you see the love, and you see the want to just give everything for their nation, because you see how much it means to them in their heart. At the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings, and you know that they'll run through brick walls if they were told to, if that's what they thought it would mean to get into this team. But it is actually kind of safeguarding and making sure that whilst we are doing it, we're looking after the players' best interests and the players' health.
Here we are in 24, and here is the thing. The reality is there is little or next to no support or protection for players. It needs to come from ex-players and from the unions in Fiji uniting and proactively advocating and calling for regulations around player protection.
A major barrier to addressing player welfare issues in Fiji has been the shambolic state of the Fiji Rugby Union. Last year, FRU went into voluntary administration after it was revealed financial woes were rife and some players were going unpaid.
World Rugby's lost faith in Fiji Rugby Union.
Peter Maisie was appointed as the interim chairperson.
Everything we've found just isn't what would be seen in normal business practice. And there has to be a big change in how we manage sports.
When we first spoke, FRU's new leadership initially appeared enthusiastic about getting to the bottom of what happened to Pasi. They announced a new investigation into his death.
No, it's a case that has to be investigated fully. If somebody's responsible for it, we have to ensure it never happens again. We need to do more medical checks before we go in.
But just recently, we discovered FRU has completed its new investigation into Pasikali's death, but they've decided not to release its findings. I spoke to FRU Special Administrator Simeone Valenitambua by phone.
When we looked at what happened to Pasikali, all the medical protocols there were followed.
Don't you think that there's still some obligation to let them know what the investigations into the death of their son came to?
As of now, we don't think that that is necessary. Because if we provide it to them, we don't know how they're going to use the information.
Do you not think that it's in the public's interest to make the report public?
No, it's not in the public interest.
FRU has not told us what protocols were followed the day Pasi collapsed. The exact circumstances around his death may never be known, but the discussion it has prompted will be lasting.
We've had a few incidences that have really knocked on the door that this is an area that needed focus, and I think it's made people aware. It's opened that door. Now the door's open, let's walk through it and let's make sure that we get it right.
Over a year since Pasi's death, Jess is still waiting to see the FRU report for herself. She's launched legal action against the organization. Jess has sent her 2 other sons, both promising rugby players, to play in New Zealand.
I'm just saddened to know that this is what it is in Fiji. Yeah? These kids may be 18, but for us, they're still our kids. And if we are looking at developing children from that age to get into the Flying Fijians, then obviously player welfare has to be priority.